To continue this series of videos that are featuring my puppet book collection, in this video we're going to take a look at Snow White. And I have two versions here of Snow White, two of the puppet book versions. And this is the smaller, older publication that has the 3D lenticular on the cover. And again, like some of my others, this one has loosened over time, but it's still in good condition. There's no tears or rips or stains. And this one, the larger format book, same puppets, same Japanese art illustrators and puppeteers, but interestingly, these characters are somewhat different than these, so there must have been at some time two publications, even though the puppeteers are the same for both books. So it's interesting to see the differences even in the same titles. But we'll take a look at the first one, the small one first. And this one was published as a part of the Tiny 3D book series. And that's what Playmore Publications called their children's book series, the Tiny 3D book series. And you can still see the price. These were not cheap back in the day when you consider the late 60s, early 70s. $2.50 for a children's book. That's a little steep, although it looks like someone got a fairly good deal on this one for 99 cents. Way back when. So here's the opening page of Snow White, and of course all the Seven Dwarves all around her and their home. And this features, of course, the evil stepmother, the Queen. And for anyone that saw the Cinderella video I did before, you'll probably recognize this stained glass background. It was also in the Cinderella book on the last page. And it's interesting to go through these because sometimes you'll see some of these backgrounds repeated, or some pieces or portions, like maybe a mirror or a piece of furniture, that gets used from story to story, which is nice. So, of course, this is her magic mirror, which always assures her each day that she's the fairest of them all, until the day that Snow White grows to become the most beautiful in the kingdom, and the mirror delivers the bad news. And here's Snow White in the forest when the woodsman was ordered to take her into the forest and kill her. But being as soft-hearted as he was, he told her to run and to never come back. So as she got deeper into the forest, of course, she discovers the home of the Seven Dwarves. And upon entering, she sees all these little tiny beds, all these little tiny lanterns, and finally, all these little tiny men. Who are very, very happy because evidently Snow White, when she came into the little house, decided to clean and dust and straighten up, because evidently the seven little dwarfs were not terribly good housekeepers. Now, of course, the Queen was convinced that Snow White was dead and gone, and she went to her mirror to once again be assured that she was the most beautiful, but oops, the mirror told her yet again Snow White was still the most beautiful. So she realized she had been tricked, and she began to concoct a potion in anticipation of making a poison apple. And she disguises herself as an old beggar woman and happens upon Snow White in the dwarf's house and offers her the apple. And of course Snow White takes the apple and takes a bite, and falls into a deep sleep. Then the seven dwarves mourn her and place her in a glass box to await her awakening. And a prince comes along and sees how much they mourn her and sees how beautiful she is. So he removes the top of the glass box and, just overcome by her beauty, places a kiss on her cheek. And that's what breaks the magic spell. She wakes up, and he's so pleased he asks her to be his bride. And of course, shortly after, they were married. And the wicked queen was invited to the wedding, but when she arrived, she was told to wear red hot iron shoes, and she had to dance until she fell down dead. Isn't that pleasant? And Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after. Have a good sleep, kids. So, okay, they're not the most politically correct. Still charming. So this is the small version. And the larger version has some really similar vignettes, maybe a little more detailed. This is when the dwarfs come upon her when she first came into their house, cleaned their house, and fell fast asleep. And you get a little better look at the wicked queen this time. And the mirror looks a little more ominous, of course. And you get a little more background when the woodsman's taking Snow White into the woods. Of course, here's the castle. And this is cute. You don't necessarily see all the 7 little beds and all the 7 little lanterns, but you do just kind of get the feeling of what the little house would be like. And this is Snow White telling them goodbye as they go off to work. And if you look in the distance, there's the evil queen waiting for the chance to bring the poison apple to Snow White. So this was a little bit more dramatic picture. You actually see that Snow White is falling into this deep sleep, and you see the evil queen disguised as the old witchy lady, and she's kind of chuckling to herself. So this is a little bit darker, maybe, than the other book. But it quickly resolves. You see that the next picture you see is, of course, the handsome prince, and that she's awake outside of her glass box. So things resolve fairly quickly in this book. And it's interesting because this ends a little differently. This says, soon they were married and lived happily ever after, while the wicked queen, seeing that her evil ways could not win, stamped away angrily, never to be heard from again. Which is a little more acceptable than wearing red hot iron shoes and being forced to dance until she dropped dead. So anyway, and this is the back of the book. It actually shows you all of the other publications and gives you a little thumbnail of each one. So anyway, those are the differences between the two. I hope you enjoyed visiting with me and taking a look at my Snow White books. And I hope you're enjoying this series, and I'll record another soon.